And welcome students. In this module we will proceed further with the topic climate of India. This is the second part of the lesson. In this module we will learn about the important concepts that you need to know in order to understand the climate of India properly. So let's start. The first one, all of us are aware of the heat zones of the earth. But children, this is just a recapitulation so that if we repeat, the concept will be fresh in our mind. So let's start. This is the diagram showing the three heat zones of the earth. The first one is from Tropic of Cancer to Tropic of Capricorn. This is called the torrid zone or the tropical zone because this is the hottest part of the earth. Why? Because this region receives maximum heat from the sun. But as we move further north and south, then this zone in the northern hemisphere and this zone in the southern hemisphere, between Tropic of Cancer to the Arctic Circle, that is 66.5 degree north, and in the southern hemisphere from Tropic of Capricorn to 66.5 degrees south, that is the Antarctic Circle. So this zone is actually experiencing neither too much of heat from the sun nor it is very much away from it. So this experience a moderate condition, neither very hot nor very cold. So we call it the temperate zone. So in the northern hemisphere it is called north temperate zone, in the southern hemisphere it is called south temperate zone. The third heat zone is the cold polar or frigid zone. The name itself says it is close to the pole. It is very cold because this region receives slanting rays of the sun. So it extends in the northern hemisphere from Arctic Circle to the North Pole, 90 degree north, and in southern hemisphere from Antarctic Circle to South Pole, that is 90 degree south. So students, these heat zones have been demarcated on the basis of the heat received by the sun. So most maximum heat received near the equator and then it goes on decreasing towards the poles. This is because of the geoid or spherical shape of the earth. So students, this was the concept of heat zones. Next we are going to learn about the apparent migration of the sun. So first let us understand what is apparent migration of the sun. Our earth is not straight, rather it is tilted along its axis. So as the earth is tilted along its axis, moving from west to east, it rotates from west to east. So as a result of this, when one hemisphere, that is, if suppose in this diagram you can see the northern hemisphere is facing the sun, whereas the southern hemisphere is far. So here northern hemisphere is having summer and therefore the days will be longer, whereas in the southern hemisphere the days will be shorter. So by this I mean when the earth comes to this position from here, then here you will see the southern hemisphere is close to the sun and the northern hemisphere is far. So this concludes that when one hemisphere is facing the sun, because the earth is tilted, if the earth would not be tilted, then the whole of the earth would receive equal amount of heat. Rather we can say the equatorial portion would receive equal amount of heat and then the heat would be reducing towards the pole, but there would be no change in season. Throughout the year the season would be the same, near the poles very cold and near the equator it would be very hot. But as the earth is tilted, so the season changes. When one hemisphere is experiencing summer, the other one will experience winter and vice versa. So students, the apparent migration of the sun means that the sun moves towards the northern hemisphere when it is summer in northern hemisphere and it moves towards the southern hemisphere when it is summer in the southern hemisphere. But in reality, does the sun move? No. The sun is stationary. The earth is moving around the sun, as you can see in the diagram. So while moving along its orbit, when one hemisphere is facing the sun, the another one is always away from it. As a result, the season changes. So students, this is called apparent migration of sun. In physics, you must have learned that when we are on a moving vehicle and we look outside, the trees, the poles which are stationary, it seems that we are stationary and they are moving. So the same thing happens to us. We are on the planet Earth, which is moving. But when we see the sun or the moon, we find them moving. But in reality, we are moving. So this is the phenomena of apparent migration of or apparent movement of heavenly bodies. So this, students, this is all about the concept of apparent migration of the sun. The next topic here is solstices and equinoxes. So children, in the previous slide we have discussed about the apparent migration of the sun and how the season changes because the sun is stationary and the earth is moving around it, and it is not straight, it is tilted. Children, one thing more we need to know, that is parallelism of earth's axis. If you look at this diagram, you will see in all the positions of the earth, I am just drawing the axis. You can see all the axes in all the four positions, they are parallel to each other. So this is called parallelism of earth's axis. This is also one reason, important reason for the change in season. So what we can conclude, that the earth is not straight, rather tilted along its axis. It's moving around the sun and its its axis is always parallel. So the parallelism of earth's axis, its movement around the sun and also its tilt along its axis lead to the change in seasons and varying length of day and night. So in next, after this, we understand solstices and equinoxes. We'll also learn how the length of days and nights vary. Students, I hope this is clear. Now let's learn about solstices and equinoxes. So here this is the first position. We'll consider it to be the first position. Here this is the equator. Northern hemisphere is experiencing more heat. It is having summer. So a day comes when the sun rays from 0 degree, it reaches the tropic of Cancer, that is 23.5 degree north. So 23.5 degree north is the last limit of overhead sun in the northern hemisphere. I'll speak again. The sun is more towards the northern hemisphere when it is having summer because it is tilted towards the sun. So the sun rays travel from equator to 23.5 degree north, and which is the last limit of overhead sun. Now students, when this happens? This happens on 21st of June. So 21st of June is the longest day in the northern hemisphere because sun rays are vertical on the tropic of Cancer on this day. So 21st June is called summer solstice in the northern hemisphere. So why it is called solstice? Here the word sol means sun and solstice means sun standing still. This is the literary meaning of the word solstice. So sun standing still. It seems that the sun is still on the tropic of Cancer, and therefore it is the longest day in the northern hemisphere. And students, it's very obvious, if it is longest day in the northern hemisphere, it is the shortest day in the southern hemisphere and the longest night there. So I hope the concept of solstice is clear. Here in the southern hemisphere, in this position, the sun rays are vertical, sun rays are more. So same thing will happen on 23.5 degrees south. Will be the last limit of vertical sun, and this will be experienced on 22nd December. So children, 22nd December will be the longest day in southern hemisphere, and for northern hemisphere we call it winter solstice. So 22nd December is the shortest day in the northern hemisphere, and as we live on the northern hemisphere, so we know that December is a winter month and the days are very short and nights are long. So 22nd December is the shortest day in the northern hemisphere, whereas 21st June is the longest day in the northern hemisphere. So students, the solstices are just opposite for both the hemisphere. And how do we mark it? We mark solstice on the basis of its last limit of vertical rays of the sun. Beyond Tropic of Cancer and beyond Tropic of Capricorn, the sun rays are never vertical. So this was the concept of solstice. Now let's move to the concept of equinox. Let's learn the literal meaning first. Equi means equal and nox means nights. So nights are equal. So all over the world for 2 days, that is on 21st March and on 23rd September. 2 days in a year, on 21st March and 23rd September, sun rays are vertical on the equator. The sun rays are vertical on the equator. So these 2 days, the days and nights are equal all over the world. Equi equal nox nights. So nights are equal, days are also equal all over the world. So students, this is the concept of solstice and equinox. Let's proceed to the next one. As I had told you, we will now learn about the varying length of day and night. So I told you the earth is not straight, rather tilted. So because of this, the length of the days and nights vary. In summer, whichever hemisphere is having summer will have longer days, shorter nights, and at the same time the another hemisphere will have shorter nights, shorter days and longer nights. It will be just opposite, vice versa. In this diagram, look at the diagram very carefully. Sun rays are more towards the northern hemisphere. This is the equator. So the northern hemisphere, we can say, is experiencing more heat from the sun. So what will happen? If you see this is circle of illumination. This line divides the earth into lit half and dark half. This is having day and this part is having night. So children, now I'll just shade the portion with day. So at the equator, the day and night is of same length. But as we move towards northern hemisphere, you will see the length of the day is more. It's increasing. And near the North Pole, we will see that there is no night. It's almost day for 6 months. And it is actually not very bright because the sun rays are slanting, so it's twilight. Even the days are not very bright. But there is no night at the North Pole for about 6 months. Whereas if we move towards the South Pole, I'll draw the length of, see, the length of day is decreasing. And there is no day at the South Pole. For about 6 months, there is no day at the South Pole. This is because the entire South Pole is away from the sun. So it's not receiving its heat. So students, this is how, because of the earth is not straight, rather tilted, the length of the days and nights vary. One more factor is working, the rotation of the earth along its axis, with the axis which is tilted. So this is the reason why the length of the days and nights vary. So children, we have learnt about certain important concepts, and the next one is winds and pressure belts. So this would be the fourth one, winds and pressure belts of the earth. This is very, very important for us to understand, as it has direct influence on the climate of any place. So first, let's see the point here. The winds blow because of difference in air pressure. So children, let's understand that how the pressure varies. Suppose this is place 1 and this is place 2. In place 1 the temperature is very high and in place 2 the temperature is low. So what will happen? The place 1 where temperature is high, because of high temperature, the air in contact with the earth will become warm. It will expand and rise up. As it rises up, pressure reduces. Why? Because pressure is of the air. Air only exerts pressure on each and every object on the earth's surface. So the air which exerts pressure, if the air only start rising up when it is warm, then definitely the pressure will reduce. Whereas the place 2 where the temperature is low, the air will contract and will put more pressure. So the low temperature area will have high pressure, whereas the high temperature region will have low pressure. So children, I hope you have understood that how due to difference in temperature, the pressure conditions also vary. Temperature and pressure, they are related. When the temperature is high on a horizontal surface, pressure will be low because the air will rise leading to low pressure. And when the temperature is low, the air will be heavier as it will contract and will exert more pressure. So this is how temperature conditions leads to pressure. It can be high pressure, it can be low pressure. Now students, the next thing is wind. Winds are also related with pressure. So we have seen the relationship between temperature and pressure. Now let's see the relationship between wind and pressure. So if a region is having high pressure, from here the wind will blow to the region with low pressure. So students, this is a law that wherever there is excess, definitely it will move towards the area where there is deficit. So winds blow from high pressure region to low pressure. Let's proceed. Now children, this is the diagram. Here we can see near the equator, this is the area which is near the equator. Here the temperature is very high, so the high temperature will lead to low pressure. So the low pressure is the result of high temperature. So what will happen? We have given a name to this pressure belt. We call it equatorial low pressure belt. We call it equatorial because it's near the equator, low pressure and belt for the pressure belt. So equatorial low pressure belt. But as we move up and also towards the south from this region, we see that this region here as well as this portion, here the temperature is comparatively less because the sun's heat is received less compared to this region. So what will happen? As the temperature is comparatively less, so low temperature will give rise to high pressure. Here also low temperature will give rise to high pressure. So this is subtropical region. So what will be the name of the pressure belt? It will be subtropical high pressure belt. As well as in the southern hemisphere also subtropical high pressure belt. So students, we have learnt about 3 pressure belts. Now let's proceed towards the poles. Here is the North Pole and here is the South Pole. So all of us know it's extremely cold there. So definitely low temperature will give rise to high pressure. And what do we call it? Polar high pressure belt. Here also near the South Pole, polar high pressure belt. So the belt will be named polar because near the pole, and the extremely low temperature will give rise to high pressure. Now students, if we move in between in this region, subpolar region, in the subpolar region, here the temperature will be comparatively higher. So high temperature will give rise to low pressure, and this will be called subpolar low pressure belt. So children, here also in the southern hemisphere, subpolar low pressure belt. So This is how the 7 pressure belts are there. Sometimes we also say there are 4 pressure belts, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, because these 3 belts are common in the southern hemisphere also. So in somewhere you will find written there are 4 pressure belts, and even you will find it written 7 pressure belts. So both are correct in their own sense. Alright students, so this was the concept of pressure belts. Now pressure belts I have taught you according to the thermal conditions, means more heat, low pressure, and less heat, high pressure. Students, I have explained you how the pressure belts are formed, but apart from the thermal factor, that is heat is more heat is leading to low pressure, like this, not only the thermal factor, rather dynamic factor, which is rotation of the earth, also has an impact in forming these pressure belts. Especially the subpolar low pressure belt is all actually formed due to this dynamic factor, that is rotation of the earth. Now students, this is about the pressure belts of the earth. Now we learn about the wind system. Let's start from the equator. Near the equator you can see it's written intertropical convergence zone. So here you will find the arrows are moving towards the equator. So these are actually winds called trade winds. So the trade winds, they blow from northeast as well as southeast, and they meet near the equator, and this region where the trade winds meet known as intertropical convergence zone. Now the another set of wind that blows from the subtropical high pressure belt to the subpolar low pressure belt, this set of wind is called westerly. So in northern as well as in southern hemisphere, both the hemisphere, you will find westerlies are blowing. And then in the polar region blows the easterlies or the polar easterlies. See children, the name is mentioned here. Now why these winds blow from a particular pressure belt to the another? The answer is, I have told you, winds blow from high pressure to low pressure. So definitely the horse latitude, which is the subtropical high pressure belt, from here the wind will blow towards the equator, equatorial region or equatorial low pressure belt, because it's a low pressure belt and this is a high pressure belt. So from high pressure to low pressure. And here also from high pressure to low pressure, the wind will blow as westerlies in both the hemisphere. And from the poles to the subpolar region, again the wind will blow as polar easterlies. So children, this is all about the pressure belts and wind system, and they have a very big impact on the climate all over the world as well as on the climate of India. And we'll learn about its impact when we'll learn the lesson. Now if the high pressure area is very close to the low pressure area, the pressure difference is very great and the wind can blow very, very fast. So students, if the high pressure area is close to the low pressure area and the pressure difference is very much, then the wind that will blow will be very, very fast. Now next concept is of the heat equator or of thermal equator. Students, till now we know that if this is the earth, there is a line at the center which divides the earth into two halves, northern and southern hemisphere, and this line is known as equator, 0 degree equator. Yes, we know the correct thing. This is the geographic equator. But children, today we learn about the concept of heat or thermal equator. See the map. Geographic equator is marked 0 degree, which is drawn exactly at the center. But you can see the red line and the blue line out here, and it's written July ITCZ and January ITCZ. So first let us recall what is ITCZ, intertropical convergence zone, where both the trade winds meet. If we can look back at the diagram, So this is intertropical convergence zone where both the trade winds meet. So students, the intertropical convergence zone of January, when it is winter in northern hemisphere. In January, northern hemisphere experiences winter. So you can see that the equator, which is the heat equator, is below the equator, geographic equator. It is in more towards the southern hemisphere. Whereas in July, when northern hemisphere is having summer, this heat equator is above the geographic equator, which is towards the northern hemisphere. So children, let's conclude that whichever hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, the heat equator or the thermal equator shifts towards that hemisphere. For example, when it is summer in northern hemisphere, the heat equator will be deviated towards northern hemisphere from the geographic equator, and when it is summer in southern hemisphere, the heat equator will be deviated from the geographic equator towards the southern hemisphere. Students, you can see this is July. When it is summer in northern hemisphere, you can see this is equator 0 degree and the heat equator is above towards the northern hemisphere. It is deviated from the geographic equator towards north. And if we see January condition, when it is winter in northern hemisphere, you will see this is our geographic equator and the heat equator has deviated towards south. So this is because the earth is not straight, rather tilted, and when one hemisphere is having is towards the sun, the another one is away from it. So I hope children the concept of heat equator is clear. Now there are certain questions. Let's see, why do pressure belts move north and south? So we have learned, as the heat equator moves north and south, all the pressure belts also move towards north and south. This is because the earth is tilted and it's the sun's energy which is more towards one hemisphere, and at the same time it is less towards the another hemisphere. Let's proceed. What is ITCZ? Children, we have learned the trade winds converge at the thermal equator or the heat equator. When both the trade winds they converge, that place is called ITCZ, Intertropical Convergence Zone. So students, we have learnt about the pressure belts. Once more we can see the intertropical convergence zone where the northeast and the southeast trade winds they meet, and here the equator must be heat equator or thermal equator. Again, one another definition I have mentioned here so that you understand it better. The ITCZ is a belt of low pressure which circles the earth generally near the equator, where the trade winds of northern and southern hemisphere come together. Now what is heat equator? Children, we have learned from West Africa to East Indies, the heat equator lies north of geographic equator. From New Guinea to 120 degree west longitude, it lies south of geographic equator. The approximate latitude of highest mean annual surface temperature is at 10 degree north. So students, this is general information like where the heat equator lies to the north and south of the geographic equator. Now why Coriolis effect is zero at equator? Children, we are also aware of Coriolis effect, that as the earth is rotating, it is generating a force called Coriolis force, and due to which the winds deflect towards their right in the northern hemisphere and towards their left in the southern hemisphere. We have learnt about this. So why this Coriolis effect is zero at the equator? The Coriolis effect is one that make low pressure rotates anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere and clockwise in southern hemisphere. This is the reason direction of rotation changes between two hemispheres. So at the equator only, it's mentioned clearly, rotate anti-clockwise in northern hemisphere and clockwise at southern hemisphere. So at the equator only the northern portion will rotate anti-clockwise and the southern portion will rotate clockwise. So what will happen? It will be zero at the, it will be just, they will cut each other and it will be zero at the equator, but it will be maximum at the poles because of the spherical shape of the earth. Now students, here is the next concept, that is the rain shadow zone or the rain shadow effect. A rain shadow is a dry area at one side of the mountain and whereas other side receive rainfall. So children, let's go to the diagram and see. If we see the diagram, this is the water body, ocean or sea. Wind that is moving over it, if it is dry, it will take moisture from the sea and it will start climbing up. If there is any high mountain or plateau, it will be forced to climb up because the mountain is an obstruction. The air cannot go anywhere, but it will be forced to rise up. So when it will be forced to rise up, it will go to upper layer and it will condense because the upper atmosphere is much cooler. This air was dry and warm, but as it went up, it was forced to rise up. So as it is forced to rise up, it will move up and it will lead to the formation of clouds, and most of the rainfall will occur on this side, on the windward side. We call it the windward side. Whereas the now here the wind will be dry and empty because it has caused the rainfall. So the cold, it will be cold because upper atmosphere was cool. So it will be cold and dry. So cold air is heavy, it will come down. And this region, this another side of the mountain will be known as the rain shadow zone. This will be known as the rain shadow zone or the leeward side of the mountain. So students, this is all about the concept of rain shadow effect. Now next is the concept of land breeze and sea breeze. So students, in the coastal areas all over the earth, the coastal areas which is just next to the sea or ocean experience these two phenomena known as land breeze and sea breeze. During the day, the land becomes much warmer and the warm wind from the land, it blows towards the sea and it pushes the cold wind from the sea towards the land. So cold breeze blow from sea to land during the day. This is called sea breeze. And at night, the land loses its heat and become cold, whereas the sea is comparatively warmer because water doesn't lose its heat very quickly. So now the warm wind will blow from sea to land and the cold wind will be pushed towards the sea. So at night the cold breeze blows from land to sea. This is called land breeze. So children, this is all about the land breeze and sea breeze. Now let's learn how they affect the climate of any place. So the land breeze, the sea breeze keeps the days cool, do not allow the days to become very hot, whereas the land breeze do not allow the nights to become very cold. So the day and night temperature in the coastal area doesn't have big difference because during the day, the days are kept cool due to sea breeze and nights are also kept it doesn't become very cold due to the land breeze. So the temperature difference is very less and this is known as the moderating influence of the sea. The land breeze and sea breeze leads to the moderating influence of the sea. So children, this is all about the effect of land and sea breeze on the climate of the coastal areas. It does not have any impact on the areas far from the coast, but it has only localized effect on the coastal areas. So children, these were the concepts that you need to understand in order to learn about the climate of any place of the world. And now we are specifically going to learn about the climate of India. So they will definitely be very helpful to you. Thank you.